Hello, my name is Dr. Joel Pierce, and I'm based at the University of Aberdeen.
And my name is Doaa Baumi, and I'm Egyptian, who is based now in England, and done my PhD. Just to give you a bit about myself, I got my bachelor's from Azhar University back in Cairo, and then I moved to the States for a number of years when I did my master's at the University of Chicago in Islamic Studies, and then I landed in England and have done my PhD at the University of Birmingham.
Yeah, whereas I've done all my degrees at the University of Aberdeen. So we're presenting today on online scriptural reasoning as a pedagogical tool for empowering women, case study, and this is going to be based on a project that we did together. Doaa and I met through an interfaith fellowship program, and we'd known each other for a couple of years before we did this project. Through that program, I became aware of scriptural reasoning as a practice, and I worked on it at a kind of local level, but I'd never tried it online prior to the pandemic. But Doaa has a lot deeper background in scriptural reasoning, so she'll talk about that a bit now.
I was first actually introduced to scripture reasoning. I was like 2014 when I was invited by Cambridge Summer School to have 2 weeks, 2 extensive weeks on scripture reasoning. And I met with people from all over the world, and we were actually introduced to different texts. And this is how I felt I need to do this more in a different context. And then it was during the pandemic time, I felt we needed perhaps more alternative because most of the worshiping places were shut down. And with the help of other two colleagues, we started this online platform where we invited a religious community, students. It was a variety of like number of different people who come for this online platform. And we have done working on text that really talks about how people can encounter such kind of difficulties and how our scripture is telling us about these kind of things. So we just took it from there, and me and Joel, we sat together and we decided perhaps we need to do something, for educational level. And then coming from Azhar University, I'm aware that there is huge number of students who are studying religion in theory, but they hardly encounter with someone from outside their tradition. So we felt there is a need for those students to have this kind of online platform, and instead of like traveling and having all these kind of like funding to be able to travel somewhere, we offer them this kind of opportunity. It's kind of like a structured one for 2 years, so they can just have the chance of meeting with someone from the UK universities and exchange ideas.
Right. So this paper is going to be based on some of the data we gathered from that in terms of how the program affected those who participated in it. And since a lot of those who participated, particularly on the Egyptian side, were women, we're going to focus on their experiences. So just to give you a picture in your mind's eye or on the screen, this is what one of our sessions looked like. This was an early session, so you'll see there's a lot of cameras off. We'll talk about why that's the case a little later on, but we'd have between 15, 20 people. Here's 16 that are participating now. So the questions we're going to look at are, what are the advantages and disadvantages of doing interfaith dialogue in this kind of informal way for women in the Middle East and in Egypt in particular? And does scriptural reasoning itself offer some opportunities for the empowerment of Egyptian women? So just so for some definitions and background information, scriptural reasoning is a particular kind of interfaith dialogue. The way it works is that you get a text from the scripture of each tradition that's participating, and someone will introduce that text, and then people will have the opportunity to make observations about it or ask questions. And so this is a way for people from one religious tradition to host people in their text, and for people to be guests in another person's or another faith's text. And it goes both ways. And so it's a really great way of identifying commonality and difference and building friendship across religious traditions. We use, Doaa?
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, most of the women who participate in this program, they are mainly from Egypt, and they're coming from Sharia law. Their English is okay. we just had a kind of like application at the beginning just to make sure that they are able to kind of like dialogue with their colleagues from the British universities here. As you can see, unlike male students who received some instruction in English with the other university, those women, they were actually taught only in Arabic. And that's why we thought it's going to be a good chance for them to have this kind of like different experience. They cannot travel abroad because they financially, there is no scholarships offered for them to travel abroad and have this kind of opportunities. And also, when it comes to the university curriculum itself, it lacks the multi-perspective approach. Most of the topics, they are taught within the Islamic perspective, so they barely know anything about how Christianity, for example, was actually just taught within Christian perspective, how Judaism is taught within Jewish perspective. All these kind of things they are not aware of. And also their opportunities to interact with someone who's native speaker. Of course, this is actually going to enhance their ability to have a sort of like conversation skills and dialogue skills as well.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, so that's all knowledge that Doaa had just from going through the Al-Azhar program, but that's also stuff that shows up in the literature. For example, Yosef Mary documents a lot of these barriers to interfaith dialogue in the Middle East.
Yeah, Courtney is actually one of my colleagues, and we have been working together on exchange programs in Cairo as well. She in this article, because she wrote a book and actually we co-author one chapter together. So she was talking about the virtual exchange and how it really provides a kind of like very unique and significant opportunity for international students, especially those who are they have limited sources to be able to travel abroad. And when we have explored these kind of things, when we have done our virtual exchange together. And also for this one, it talks a bit about the government restriction, the government restriction, Egyptian government, and how they leans towards supporting conservative perspective. And this actually offers kind of like limitation for interfaith dialogue. And this explains a bit why we decided to go for the online platform, so we could ease all these kind of like security check and kind of like government limitation on interfaith dialogue. Of course, we have a trusted institution such as the British Council, who generously offered to have the part of the selection for students. They were taking part in this process. So most of the students who were coming from other university, they to some extent also study with the British Council and have the program in English. And that's how we can, we have tried to make sure that their English is okay, so they can have a good conversation with their colleagues here in England.
Yeah, so as Doaa was saying, we recruited the Egyptian students mainly through the British Council. UK students we recruited through divinity and religious studies programs. And once we'd gotten kind of a critical mass that we knew that we could do this, we moved on to having SR sessions. And so the SR sessions met once a month. We had 2 groups that met on different days during the week, but once a month for 7 months. So we got 7 sessions in face-to-face. And then also we had a WhatsApp group that ran in the background where people could dialogue about the topics that came up in the discussion. And then the final kind of phase of the project was gathering feedback. And so on completing the sessions, we had them fill out a kind of more extensive questionnaire, which I'm going to talk about a little later. And this is some of our advertising material for UK students.
So when it comes to the program design itself, so of course, when we first launched this initiative, we got a huge number of students who were interested, especially from the Egyptian side. So we're interested to come to this program, but then we have to make sure that it's really, we have a balanced number from both sides. So we limited this into 2 groups and around like 20 students roughly. The majority were women. So about like 12 female Egyptian students, and they were really committed to this program. And also we, because we understand that students who are coming from different faith traditions, to some extent, they might also confuse some shared terminologies such as scripture, prophets, God, and all these kind of things. So we try to make sure we have introductory session so we can introduce both the Quran and the Bible, emphasizing the history and the canonization and all these kind of different backgrounds. So students, when they aim to have the first session, they have a solid background to stand on. In terms of like the themes itself, of course, so we needed to make this sure begin with something that really light and substantial overlap, so students still can relate to each other. And then gradually, session by session, we move to more kind of like challenging topics, and which has a lot of like difficulties and perhaps challenging questions. But we always make sure that we have those towards the end of the program. So this kind of like friendship and trust has been already built, so students can feel more comfortable to discuss all these kind of issues. We also try to make sure within the design of the program to just give opportunities for leadership. So within the program itself, students can still have chance to lead some of the session, introduce the text, share their ideas. And of course, sometimes we just divide them into like smaller group and students can share more thoughts about different things.
Great. And just to drill down a bit more into like how the application and the feedback worked. The application, I mean, some of it was just trying to make sure that we could get in touch with the people, but we also were asking them about their past experiences with SR, other forms of interfaith dialogue, and also kind of attitudinal questions about, you know, how they viewed other faiths or even what their knowledge of other faiths was. The feedback survey was a bit more extensive. We had specific themes that we asked them about, so the overall experience of the program, but also attitudes towards the scriptures, their own and others. Have they changed over the course of the program? Friendships, use of technology. So one of the things we were curious about was whether this works as a technological experience, and also for the Egyptian students, whether the English language program that they're part of prepared them for this program. The questions were a mix of different kinds of survey questions, everything from a kind of yes, no, maybe format to ranking things to short answer. So the findings we found in terms of our first questions were the advantages and disadvantages of online SR. So one of the interesting things we discovered was that the kind of gradations that you can participate in a Zoom meeting, everything from just listening in to kind of talking with your camera off to having your camera on and talking and being fully involved, actually kind of served our participants well in that it allowed them a very gentle entryway. So some of the initial initially some of the participants only kind of listened in and were nervous about speaking. Maybe they thought their English language wasn't up to it, or they didn't know how to have this kind of conversation, but they kept coming along. And as they continued to come along, they got more confident and more participated in the program. And we did find that actually just the mere fact that you could have conversations online between people in Egypt and the UK meant that this was one of the first opportunities for a lot of our participants to have interfaith conversations at all with someone from another faith or country. And we found in terms of the feedback we got that SR accomplished its goal, which was to kind of help them to see commonalities between the two faiths and also to recognize the differences and still maintain friendships across those. There are disadvantages to this sort of format, and I think we all know them who have used Zoom meetings, which is that Zoom is only as good as your internet connection. And for a lot of our participants, internet connections were things that went on and off in terms of how good they could be. So sometimes we had participants who couldn't turn their camera on because the internet was just too slow, or that it would drop them from the call and they'd have to rejoin, and they struggled with that. And just sometimes I think also there's, it seemed like from our feedback, can be a mismatch in terms of cultural perceptions of technology and what kind of relationships it can form. I think our Egyptian students seem to feel much closer to the UK students at the end. And the UK students, I think, did really appreciate the experience, but were kind of skeptical that you could form friendships through the internet. And so maybe we're less positive on like, well, we're going to continue having these relationships going forward.
So those are like kind of like feedback from students, and of course there's other ones, because part of the program we have done a Facebook page, and actually on the Facebook page there is a number of recordings by women from Egypt, and most of them, they were really happy to do this recording because they felt that the program affected them in a very positive way. But I'm just gonna read a bit of like the participant, how the participant described the program here. So some people found it really helpful, qualifies me to know about Christianity and Christians, and not to be shocked or afraid of such experience in real life. And as Joel just mentioned now, because some of them, that was really the first experience ever to have someone from outside their tradition. The other one, what I really like about this program, and there is no pressure, just sharing our thoughts, because some of them, you can see they coming with a fear of maybe conversion, or they have to make sure that they really speaks good about their own religion, but we try to make sure that they understand how the platform works in terms of like just sharing ideas, and there was no pressure at all from saying anything. Also, the program equipped me with the valuable tools that have enhanced my understanding of my own religion. And this is also what we found is just trying for each side to listen to the question each student is actually raising. They found it quite helpful for them also to have this kind of like question within their own traditions. One of the actually candidates I just want to share here, she continued also to have to participate in it. So once she finished the program with us, she was really satisfied and happy about the whole experience, and she was encouraged to do more of this. So she applied for different programs and she got a fellowship. And also right now she's happy to continue doing her master's in England, which is really a great progress for her, because before this experience, of course, it was hard for her to know more about the Western approach, to meet with someone from outside Egypt, but this one platform enabled her to have this kind of nice experience.
Yeah, and in addition to people coming to England, I got to go to Cairo and hang out with and some of our participants in the SR program, and we actually did a little SR in the British Council building in Cairo as kind of a bonus for some of our students based there. So thank you so much for listening to our presentation, and we look forward to discussing it with you in the Q&A.
Thank you.